Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health Facebook Live Show, episode 10. I'm Dr. Narissa Bauer, your host. I'm a behavioral pediatrician and blogger of Let's Talk Kids Health. As you know, the concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health and wellness for children and families everywhere. Each week, I plan to bring you topics and guests to help me advance the mission so that we can all talk together. Now, remember, if you're viewing this live, you'll have the opportunity to post comments and ask questions of my guest. The replay will be immediately available when we end the broadcast, so feel free to share it with your networks. If you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out my past ones, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer MD, and follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health. Okay, so now to this week's guest. Jennifer provides mental health therapy services for individuals and families. She's affiliated with Strengthening Families, LLC, a practice offering a specialty in adoption, attachment, and trauma. Along with these areas, Jennifer also has a special interest in grief and loss and is trained in Fairplay and EMDR. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Dr. Bauer. It's so good to see you.
I am so happy to have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
And thanks for spending some time on the evening. So I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Just to remind our guests who are watching, if you're watching this live, when you drop a comment, please use the hashtag live. So that way we know that it was during this live episode that you commented or posted a question. But if you are catching this on replay, use the hashtag replay. Great. So why don't we get started? This is a really great topic, and I'm so excited to have you on. So the first question is, why is connection and relationship important?
Yeah, so connection and relationship, it's kind of like I look at it as like a foundation of a house. It's really important that we have a strong foundation, really with any relationships, but if we're talking about parenting especially, I think it's important that we have the connection and relationship with our children, especially as they get older. So you have that foundation you've built from just early on, so that when they get older, and you have, let's say, teenagers, you have to hit hard topics, right? Hard topics are going to be hard no matter what. But if you have that connection, that relationship already built in, those topics become a lot less intense because you're not trying to build relationship and do the hard topics. And I think if we think about like our own relationships, when you've been with a friend, with your partner, with a coworker, and you've walked out of there feeling really seen, really heard, really valued, that feels really good. It feels safe. You're going to be more comfortable to open up next time, be vulnerable with them. If, however, you walk out and you're feeling, oh, I'm not really sure they got what I was saying, they kind of talked over me, they were kind of on their phone a little bit, you're probably going to put up a little bit of a protection and not really want to engage as much next time. So your body's natural response is like, yeah, I didn't really get a great safe feeling. I don't know if I'm going to really overly engage with them, which is what's important with kids. We want to engage. We want to keep them connected. We want them to be seen and heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's kind of a great visual that you said, like if you're talking to someone and they go like this, like looking at their phone at the same time. I mean, I think it really matters to really have eye contact and to really feel like they're being heard. So.
Well, I think with the phone, the interesting thing is it can seem like, oh, it's just a second to look away. But connection, I think one of the things too is connection can be built in very small increments. And that's one thing I love with parents is it's not it's great if we can spend a full day with our kids one-on-one. That's ideal, right? But that's not really reality all the time. But it is reality to connect for 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And so if we're connecting and have that phone half with us, what message do you think that's sending? Versus if you put that phone down and you're with them, that feels so good and so safe. They feel loved and valued. And so I think that's the key too. It may just seem like a quick one email or one quick this, but we've been on the receiving end of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And we all done it, right?
Yes.
We've all done it.
Yes. Me included. So.
Yep.
Well, so I know in your practice that you see a lot of clients that have had childhood trauma. You deal a lot with kids with adoption, foster care. what exactly, just so that our viewers know, like what constitutes childhood trauma?
So childhood trauma is when a child experiences, neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Those are the big ones. But it can also involve a big, car accident that is, intense. It can be medical trauma. There could be big traumas and little traumas.
Yes.
Big traumas are usually our the ongoing abuse, the neglect, those pieces. But then smaller traumas can also be impactful too. And I think the important thing to remember with childhood traumas is that it also depends on, you and Dr. Bauer, you and I could be in the car together and we could both have experienced the same car accident and we both may end up in the hospital. However, you may have different support groups in place. You have a different history. You have a different factors that make up your life. So we may see that differently. It might be more traumatic for me or for you, depending on what our history is. So I think that's important to remember too, that trauma it really is important to kind of clarify and understand the history and how that can impact. So kids that have ongoing trauma may be exposed to many things. And then there could be single event traumas too.
Yeah, I thank you, because I think I often, when I'm seeing clients, I talk about adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, and there is new research to suggest that that it doesn't, while it's important to know about those traumas, those ACEs that happen and occur, we really do want to impart to families that there is hope, because we know that positive childhood experiences can buffer that and safe, secure, nurturing relationships. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So we do want to say that even though this topic is kind of heavy at times, that there is hope always.
Right. Absolutely. Because we can't prepare for, we love to be able to prepare for every event that's going to happen, but we don't. But if we provide an environment that is in general safe, and you provide felt safety, which is just a profound way for us to feel safe in our environment, then yes, absolutely. If we experience something, then we're going to be surrounded and supported by the safety and the connection and the relationships to help us move through that trauma.
Right.
And that is the key. So it's absolutely important to know that. And like you said, with a heavy topic, to know that, yes, the relationships and the connections are so important in healing.
Yes. So I guess this is a great segue then into the next one. I mean, what are some helpful ways for parents to manage a child who has experienced some trauma?
Okay. So kids with trauma, really, I'll be honest, any kids can really benefit from this, but kids with trauma especially, it's really important to have, I said the word felt safety. So felt safety is, we can all be in a home where we know we have, roof over our head and we've got food on the table. So in theory, you're like, well, the kid is safe, but felt safety is, how do we help that kid really feel like they're safe consistently? Because again, I think if you've had trauma, sometimes you can be in an environment that is super safe and still be feeling the effects of it, because our brain kind of remembers that trauma. And so we're kind of thinking, wait a minute, you're safe, I've got you, but we need to facilitate how to make them feel safe. And that comes by being predictable, providing structure, providing boundaries, providing attunement to, like, I see where you're at, allowing them to, kind of share some of their thoughts and feelings and naming their feelings, being present. I think those are all really important. Kids with trauma want to know what's going to happen, what's coming next. If I'm getting ready to go on vacation, while vacation's a really exciting place, it's important for our kids that we say, hey, this is where we're going to stay. This is what it's going to look like. This is how long the road trip's going to be. I think anytime we can be predictable, it basically tells their brain and their body, okay, I know what's going on. I know there's going to be no surprises. I'm safe. And that's, I think, the key is that predictability and structure for our kids.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have any way of coaching parents on putting routine in place?
Yeah. Well, I think it's starting with whatever they have going on. And so I think it's a matter of, so when I say structure and predictability, a lot of times that can mean literally a schedule, right? A schedule that's doable. I think that's the key. Because what I wouldn't want is to provide a schedule that anything the parent can follow through with is the key. Because I would rather have a loose schedule that you can follow than a super tight schedule that you cannot follow.
Yeah.
Because I think I want it to be adaptable to each parent's style and what they can provide. So if it's just a matter of let's just work on dinner every day at the same time, that's awesome. Or a bedtime routine and a morning routine. Those are really crucial times, The other things we do to help with some predictability and some structure is also making sure that they have snacks and that they're hydrated. So hydration is a huge key for our kids to maintain to keep their bodies and their neural systems just calm and regulated, and basically so they can receive the information you're providing them. And a lot of times our kids aren't drinking enough water or snacks. When's the last time they had food? A lot of times they've gone too long without food, and their body needs that. And a lot of times that will curb whatever's going on. So that's another way we often, those are some of the first steps, is get some structure in place, get some predictability, make sure they've got some hydration, they've got some food, and also some movement. I think movement's important. Have they gotten up and moved? Making sure they got the sensory input going on.
Great. And we have had some people coming and just commenting right now, just saying hi. So this is from Dr. Una. Hello. So glad that she's here. And then also, hello, Alicia.
That's my coworker, Alicia. Yeah. Hi, Alicia.
That's so nice. I love it when people at least let us know that somebody's out there.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you a question too. And again, while I'm asking questions, if any viewers who are watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop the questions so that we can talk about it while we're broadcasting.
Well, you know what? The other thing is, I was just thinking about, as you were taking the cute comments, was one other thing as you were talking about coaching parents. Another thing that's something that we spend time on is helping parents identify what the child's need is. A lot of times we're all kind of paying more attention to the behavior.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important. And sometimes we have to be kind of like investigators. Like what is their need? I've got to do that with my own kids. Well, something's going on. I need to know what their need is. If we can solve and figure out the need, we can often help figure out the behavior. But we really have to go beneath that behavior and figure out what is it their need. Are they needing food? Are they needing a drink? Are they needing some predictability? Are they needing to get outside and run? I think that's a key. Are they needing me to help them identify their feeling? So I think that's another key we help with our parents.
Yeah, that is so important. I think to that point, sometimes parents want to respond quickly to even like a negative comment that a child may say, and really it even though that could be a barbed comment, right? Like it often represents an inside feeling that is just coming out in that way.
Yes. And a lot of times I think it's one of the hardest parts about being a parent, one, is paying attention to what we're bringing into the situation. Like if a lot of times we may hear that comment and we have to unfortunately be the one that goes, okay, that was not personal to me. I need to take a step back and make sure I'm calm and regulated and able to be part of this interaction. Because if I'm not, we're just going to butt heads, and that's not going to go anywhere either. So it's really making sure we know what we're bringing in from our own histories, from our own day. If it's been a stressful day, we need to be kind of aware of that to make sure, are we hydrated? Are we cared for? Do we know what we're bringing in when we try to meet the child's need? And how we might react, and are we opening up to be able to allow them to want to engage with us, or are they going to need to kind of get in a protective mode?
Yeah, I mean, it is that kind of that interplay and that dynamic there as So because in your bio, you had mentioned that you are trained in a couple different kind of modalities. Can you explain what Fairplay is?
Yeah, so Fairplay is a dyadic type of therapy that there's 4 of us in our office, and we all are trained. And what we do is we bring the parent in with the child. So it's always the child and the parent and the therapist. Sometimes it's both parents. It just depends on the situation. And basically what we're doing is we're providing attachment building, relationship building, relationship strengthening. We're doing some modeling, and we're also doing, helping the child and the parent kind of strengthen some of the areas. A lot of times with our kids, we've got to kind of go back to some of the areas that maybe the developmental trauma, which is basically kind of got a little stuck early on, for lack of a better word. So we got to go back and kind of fill in some of that. And so we do that by some of the activities. It's direct. It's a form of play therapy, but it is very directive by the therapist versus the child. In traditional play therapy, a lot of the child comes in and kind of just plays and kind of processes through. And there's times when we may use that too, but Fairplay itself is more of a directive for what areas that we need to help the child kind of strengthen, or the areas of attachment that need to be strengthened or healed.
Now, is there a certain age range of clients that's more appropriate for?
Often it's probably maybe 0 to 12, but we can certainly utilize some of it with teenagers. A lot of it depends on their emotional age. A lot of it depends on their trauma, and and how we might utilize which activities we would use. We can also we've done it. You can do Fairplay with early on with super young babies and their parents too. So it just depends. But with teenagers, you can certainly use it. You just have to be a little bit more creative and pick and choose and really assess where they're at emotionally and what they can benefit from.
And then you also said that you were trained in EMDR. Can you explain what that is?
Right. So EMDR is, I'm going to make sure I get the words right because it's a long word. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So really what that means is that it's really great on trauma therapy, but it also can be used for anxiety. It can be used for depression. I mean, it can be used for a lot of things. I think it first came out to be really used with a kind of PTSD and trauma. And what it really does is it helps areas where there's some areas of being stuck, or if it's kind of like if you've got a client and they understand and they've got a lot of great insight, but they go home and they're just having trouble really implementing, or they're like, I'm not sure why I'm just continuing to have this pattern over and over. That's a great place for EMDR because it's really working with the brain. Your brain it's a bilateral stimulation that goes on, and then at the same time you're doing some processing, and your brain is basically making a new path. Is what it's doing, because your brain wants to process the way it's always done, how it's going to see the trauma, and we want to make a new way for the brain to see that trauma and to process through it. And so we weave that in a lot with Fairplay. We weave it in with different other therapy modalities, with sand tray, with just ton of traditional talk therapy. So you can weave it in a lot and use it as it is appropriate and effective for clients.
I think one of the other things that this is making me just sort of want to ask you is, there's all these different parenting programs available, like Circle of Security, Incredibly. I mean, there's just a lot of different ones out there. And is there anything specific or different when it comes to trauma-informed interventions or positive parenting ones? Are there any similarities or any differences?
I think the biggest thing with trauma informed is it's often has got a component of relationship based. It's it's relationship, it's connection, it's brain based. A lot of times it's brain or body based. So I think a lot of times that's like Circle of Security parenting is similar in how what their approach is, and same with the TBRI, which is a trust-based relational intervention, that we use that a lot. It's actually not an intervention for kids. It's actually a way to help parents. And so my coworkers, they will train on that. And so that's similar, but a lot of it is really, it's a connection before we correct. And I think sometimes it's not a behavior modification. So while we are ultimately we're hoping to see some behaviors decrease, the behavior is not the primary target. It's really, what is the child needing? How do we connect so we can provide that safety for the child to feel safe in their environment? And that's really the core of how a lot of the trauma focused is about.
Okay. And then would you say that, given the past year, are you, I bet you're seeing a lot of kids and families for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You know, uh, has that been startling to you? I mean, as far as like the types of things that they're coming in
Mhm.
for, or is it just, the prevalence is just up because we're all under stress?
Yeah, I would say the prevalence is up because we're all, I think everybody's under stress. And I think what happens too is it's not just, you know, kids, it's all of us adults. It's interesting because we're talking about predictability and structure. Well, if you think about it, all of that got rocked for all of us.
Yeah.
All of our felt safety got kind of thrown up in the air, and we all had to figure out how to redo what it looked like to be safe. So here we are trying to help our kids as adults. We're trying to figure out how to feel safe. How do we have some structure to our lives, some boundaries to our lives when we're working from home and being at home? We had to redo all that. So I think for sure the prevalence is up, and I think that what was already maybe brewing, I think got enhanced. And I also think, interestingly, I think some places too we've seen it also enhance some attachment. We've seen it, some families that have really been together, it has really allowed them to connect more. And so that's been kind of a positive spin that I've enjoyed seeing, is how it's strengthened some families that have been together, and there's been less going on. There's been more predictability to the days because they have less transitions. A lot of kids with trauma, transitions are hard. And so a lot of both parents are working from home, so they get to see both parents during the day. So I think there's been some increases, but I think overall, yeah, I think the prevalence is up, and a lot of people are needing services right now, not just trauma based.
Right, for
Yes,
sure.
no, we've exactly.
So if people are interested in sort of finding you,
Hmm.
like in the local Indianapolis area, I mean,
Yes.
where can they get more information?
So I work with Strengthening Families.
Uh-huh.
So that's the LLC we work with. It's Strengthening Families LLC. You can go online and find that. I also have some social, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter that I do my best to keep up with, um, to try to help. Provide resources, because there's so many resources out there. I'm really diligent about sifting through and picking what are the best ones that I maybe want my families or want other people to hear, because again, we can also get inundated with resources, and it can be
Yeah.
overwhelming, right? So I want to really kind of pare that down to not be so overwhelming for families already dealing with a lot.
Hmm.
And so I think it's like at J Meisterland. Honestly, I don't even know my handles. I think you've got them, but it's like at J Meisterland. I think if you just Google my name in Facebook or Google my name in Instagram, it'll show up.
Uh-huh. Now I know
Yeah.
this, is this a fair question? So you just mentioned resources. Is there like one or two like your favorite books that you often recommend to families?
Well, Body Keeps the Score is probably, I don't always recommend to families. That depends, but that is just a great book in general. I know
Mhm.
that's kind of one of the back books. Probably the biggest book, I actually pulled it up here, that I recommend to families. You can see all my tabs.
It's well worn.
Yes, it's a Connected Child. And so, especially if there's trauma involved, can you see
Uh-huh.
that? Yeah. If
Yeah,
there's
there we go.
trauma involved, yeah, I'm trying to do my camera. This is an incredible book. It's an easy read. I think it's great. It's actually great. When I read it, it's super great for any parent. Honestly, I was able to apply it. So, but definitely for trauma, it helps open up and just give a little bit of support and hope. I think when, especially families that have maybe tried a lot of things and kind of are feeling a little bit down and a little bit like, I'm not sure um, if this is ever going to end, if this is going to stop, it's as overwhelming. I think the Connected Child is a really good place to start,
Oh,
to
good.
just feel like, okay, so that's probably the biggest book that I would recommend right away.
Great.
There's another book. I have not read this one yet, but it's The Connected Parent. I just got it. It's
Oh,
kind of it goes with this one. So I literally just got it like 2 days ago. So that's another one, but I think it's going to be a good read. I could probably safely recommend that one also.
awesome.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So sorry, I'd like to get resources, so I'll put a link to
No,
those
that's
books
great.
in the comments
Yes,
there. So thank you so much for joining us.
absolutely.
This was so fun to just chat with you. And again, if you're watching this on replay later, if you have any questions or comments, please do use that hashtag replay, because I will be combing through and making sure that if there are any questions that I can get Jennifer to answer after the fact, then I will absolutely pass that on.
Okay.
So next week's special guest is Dr. Mary Barbera, who will talk about Turn Autism Around, 3 action steps for parents and professionals. And I do want you to know, because as you know, I'm the developer of the Teach Me ADHD course. So registration is open now. I'm enrolling for 2 cohorts. Registration, as I said, is right there at that link. You can head there. I'm actually doing 2 webinars this weekend, Friday at 7 and Saturday at 7. Which is helping your child uncover their ADHD superpowers. But the classes will be capped at 10 parent-child pairs, so don't delay. And again, thank you all for watching. Now, if you have any suggestions for future topics or guests, please feel free to reach out to me at my email, which is letstalkkidshealth@gmail.com, or drop me a comment below, message me on social media, and remember, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer MD, to be alerted whenever I go live each week. Thanks again for joining us tonight.